All right. We're going to get to our speaker today, but it's my pleasure to introduce our day chair, Lynn Otis. Lynn just retired from a 39-year career with Macy's as a vice president and store manager, both in Minneapolis and Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Prior to that, she worked for O'Neill's, a division of May Company, as a buyer and development buyer. She grew up in the Detroit area, attending Michigan State University and graduating from Wayne State University. While living in Sioux Falls, she volunteered with Dress for Success, served on the Chamber of Commerce board, served as president of the board of the Convention and Visitors Board. She and her late husband were billet parents to 37 young men for the Sioux Falls Stampede junior hockey team. Awesome. She moved back to the Twin Cities in December of 2019, and since retirement has been involved in Meals on Wheels and other volunteering opportunities. Her hobbies include cooking, working out, learning to golf, and traveling. She's also our community service chair, and there is a meeting that I forgot to mention this coming Tuesday. So please join. It's on Zoom. Please welcome Lynn.
Good morning. Ooh, too close. Okay. Good morning. Well, I have the pleasure to introduce our speaker today, and it is Ellie Krug. Welcome back, Ellie. In 2009, when she was a civil trial attorney in Cedar Rapids with 100+ trials, Ellen Krug transitioned from male to female. She later became one of the few attorneys nationally to try jury cases in separate genders. The author of Getting to Ellen, a memoir about love, honesty, and gender change, Ellie was trained on diversity and inclusion to court systems, law firms, Fortune 100 corporations, and colleges and universities on more than 100 occasions. A hopeless idealist, Ellie has presented her inclusivity training, gray area thinking across the country. Ellie is the recipient of a number of awards and recognition, including the 2023 Stonewall Award from the American Bar Association, a 2019 Outfront Minnesota Legacy Award, and Advocate magazine naming Ellie as one of 25 legal advocates fighting for trans rights. She is also a columnist for Minnesota Women's Press and a weekly radio host on AM 950 radio, where her 250+ episodes of Ellie 2.0 radio highlight idealism and idealists working to make the world a better place for all humans. Her monthly e-newsletter, The Ripple, reaches 9,000+ readers and can be found at www.elliekrug.com. In November of 2022, Ellie was elected to her local school board in a rural urban county outside the Twin Cities, making her one of a handful of transgender school board members in America. Welcome, Ellie.
Thanks, Lynn. I appreciate that introduction that I wrote. Hi, everyone. I am thrilled to be back to my club. And I need to make sure that the very first thing I say is that everything I tell you between now and 10:30, everything I say to you this morning, you understand I'm not speaking on behalf of my school district or as an elected official. I'm speaking as a human, okay? I just want to I have to make that kind of thing clear. I'm also going to tell you this is a strident talk because I am frustrated, and you're going to hear it in my voice. And I've got to tell you right off the bat, it is incredibly ironic to me that we start this meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance and the supposedness of liberty and justice for all, because that is not what's happening in America right now as it relates to transgender people and non-binary people. Non-binary people are folks that don't identify as male or female. They just identify as humans. And so I'm here to talk with you about that, okay? I'm here to talk with you about what is creating a tremendous refugee problem for Americans, American refugees. And so let me talk first about how we got here. You may all recall back in 2016, North Carolina, their legislature and governor signed the bill, passed HB2, which was intended to prevent transgender people from using public restrooms in North Carolina. You may recall that there was a tremendous outcry across the nation as a result of that. And we had companies deciding that they're not going to relocate, and jobs were lost in North Carolina because they didn't want to take their employees to an environment where the state was intolerant. You may recall that I think it was the Final Four, got booted out of Charlotte because the NBA or the NCAA said we're not going to support this state if they're going to do that. And you had this massive outcry against HB2, which eventually resulted in a Democratic governor being elected and the legislature in North Carolina turning so that they actually revoked HB2, and they ended up putting something else in. It wasn't entirely what the trans community wanted, but nonetheless, there was this national outcry. And we have lost all of that. Okay? We have lost all of that. And what happened? How did we get here? Because I'm going to show you a map in a second that's going to demonstrate how bad it is for my community. We got here first because transgender people, literally between 2015 and 2023, have become far more visible. When I transitioned genders in 2009, on the news, like on CNN or whatever, you would hear once a month, maybe twice a month, something about transgender people. Today, I mean, you can't do a news scroll without coming across one, if not a half a dozen stories about transgender people. So the landscape, the visibility has changed greatly. The reason it changed so much is because of Caitlyn Jenner. Caitlyn Jenner came out in April of 2015 as transgender. Say what you will about her politics. That's a whole different talk. But what she did, because she was so well known across the world, is transgender people who are very hidden. I didn't transition till I was 52. No one had any idea about what was going on in my head about gender. But when she came out, it caused transgender people across the world to see she's being brave. She's risking her reputation and all kinds of stuff. And if she's going to be brave, I'm going to be brave. And that's helped propel people to come forward. It did. And not only as adults, but also it made parents realize that transgender children, I mean, do we understand that there are young humans as young as 3 years old, assigned male at birth because they were born with a penis. Oh, I just said that, didn't I? Vagina too, okay, all right, I got it out there, all right. But born with a penis, okay, who says, mommy, I'm not a boy, I'm a girl. I want to be known as Susie and not Daniel, okay? I mean, literally, those humans exist. And they've always existed. But before trans people became very visible and before the internet came along where they found that they could have support and they weren't alone, parents suppressed. They caused their children to suppress. Oh, stop it. You're a boy. You're not a girl. Stop it. But once Caitlyn Jenner came out and the parents saw that this is, possible, more and more began to love their kids and allow their kids to be who they were. So you've got more kids showing up. You have more adults showing up. And what that has done, okay, is caused people to be afraid. But at the same time, on the political landscape, on the same time, as we know how politics works, because politics works, at least for one party, and I know we got some of those folks here, and that's fine, okay. But the way it works is that you, for at least a segment of the political community, the way that you elevate your cause is to ostracize or marginalize or other groups within America. You may recall the very first thing on Donald Trump's campaign, coming down the escalator, the very first speech he made was about the Mexicans coming as the rapists. That became part of his whole campaign in the 2016 campaign. Okay. Well, what did the conservatives have for a very long time? They had abortion. They had that as the wedge issue. It's the issue to rally the troops. Okay. Well, Supreme Court gave him back abortion. Took it away. And so what does the conservative community now have as a way to motivate their base? It happens to be transgender people. That's what they have. And why transgender people of all the people in the whole wide world, of all the people in the United States? Why transgender people? Well, first of all, there aren't a whole lot of us. The official statistic is that there's 1.6 million. All right. I think there are far more transgender people than that, but we're certainly not like 25 million people in America. And so we're small. We're also, afraid because we're at great risk. In the United States right now, there are only 22 states in DC that have legal rights for transgender people. So in the vast majority of the country, if you come out as transgender, you can get kicked out of your apartment, or you can possibly lose your health care. I'll talk about that in a second. Or even though the Supreme Court has said that you can't discriminate against LGBTQ people in the employment setting, trust me, that may be going, okay? We know how it works, and people can lose their jobs for all kinds of reasons. And so we're afraid, but we don't have the political force. Anybody here remember what ACT UP was in the 80s? ACT UP was gay men, some lesbians, but gay men mainly saying, hey, we're dying, and no one's doing anything about it. And what they did, they created a political force. They went to political events with politicians. They threw fake blood on those politicians because Ronald Reagan was refusing to even acknowledge that there was an AIDS epidemic in the country, and nobody was researching how to find out the cause of AIDS. Okay, we don't have it ACT UP. Transgender people, we don't have that. We don't have anything, and so we are an easy target. And then, of course, it's the idea that it's a choice, that, the number of people who told me, you don't have to do this, okay? My mother-in-law, who I adored, who said that she was no longer going to ever communicate with me again because I had made a choice about being me, and she was going to make a choice to not recognize that. And so we have all of that going on. And then 2 quick stories. About 3 weeks ago, I was sitting with a bunch of LGBTQ plus middle schoolers. Thank God my district allows them space to be themselves and to have the ability to be supported with each other. They brought me in. I talked to them a little bit. I gave them some spiel about living authentically and about the power of loving oneself and all of that jazz. And I asked, what's on your mind? And a 7th grade girl right next to me, she said one word: Florida. This is a 7th grader. She says Florida, living in Minnesota. I trust I do not need to lay out what Florida is doing as it relates to LGBTQ plus people, but particularly trans. Last Wednesday, a week ago today, I was in Des Moines speaking to lawyers, giving a Transgender 101 talk for lawyers. I got done with the talk, and somebody in the back raised their hand and said, Ellie, what advice do you have for parents of transgender children in Iowa? Because Iowa has passed a law, well, they passed multiple laws, but they passed a law saying that children under 18, youth under 18 can no longer get gender-affirming care. That would mean going to a doctor, being able to get hormones to block puberty so that transgender girls don't have this voice, and also to be able to take hormones that are consistent with their gender identity, okay? So Iowa said, nope, you're under 18, you can't get any of that. Iowa just passed a law 2 weeks ago saying that transgender students have to use the restrooms that align only with their birth gender, not with their gender identity. So that means, in theory, trans girls who have long hair and, dress femininely have to go into the boys' restroom and boys' locker room. And we can imagine how simple that's going to be for them. But that's what the legislators in Iowa have said. So this person raised the question and she said, Ellie, what advice do you have? And I said, I've got 2 questions that every parent with a trans or non-binary kid in Iowa should ask themselves. First question, how bad is it? Second question, how much worse will it get? And so that brings me to, hopefully I know how to work. I don't use PowerPoints ever. There it goes. That brings me to how bad it is. Now, if you look at this map, you will see up here. I can do this thing, right? Up here, you go from lighter to darker. That reflects the number of laws, proposed laws that have been introduced. So the darkest, so like Florida, Texas and Oklahoma and Missouri, they have introduced more than 35 anti-LGBTQ bills, but are mainly anti-trans bills. Just this legislative season. Just this legislative season. There are only 5 states in the country where anti-trans bills have not been introduced. Think about that. Only 5 states. In Minnesota, I think we've had 4 anti-trans bills introduced. And of course, with our legislature, they were dead on arrival, thank God, okay? But look at this. Look at the country. This is targeting my community. And people are going to die as a result of this. They are, because transgender people have the highest incidence of all the worst. We have the highest incidence of attempted suicides. The attempted suicide rate for the transgender community is 40 times the rate for non-transgender people. That would be cisgender people. We have the highest rates of depression among the LGBTQ alphabet. We have the highest rate of addictions because we're depressed and there's only one way to deal with it for many people. We have the highest rate of homelessness because when we come out, people kick us out of where we live. We have the highest rate of unemployment because we lose our jobs. We have the highest rate of, God, I don't know what else, but it is horrible. And what happens is, so one more story. 2 weeks ago, I get a call from my school district and they say, Ellie, we have a transgender girl here who is suffering because of this. Will you come and talk to her? And I went and I sat with this very smart, very, very smart senior transgender girl. And she just told me it's all weighing on her. And she's afraid. She's afraid, even though she lives in Minnesota, she realizes that everyone, do you understand? We are only one election away from Minnesota getting the black. We're only one election away. And she realizes that. And I'm like, my God, I am so sorry that you're experiencing that. We talked about some things about resiliency and some other stuff. But this here is affecting even our children in Minnesota where we have all kinds of rights. All right. And so let me go to the next slide. How bad is it? 469 anti-LGBTQ bills, mostly anti-trans bills, introduced this year across the country. Plus one more, it's 470, because I read last night that in Texas yesterday, they introduced a bill that would eliminate any protections for doctors or therapists if a transgender person suffers as a result of their therapy. So let's say a therapist treats somebody when they're 15 years old for gender dysphoria, that's where your brain doesn't match your body. Let's assume they treat them at 15, and let's assume that person commits suicide at 50. The family of that transgender person could sue the therapist all the way back to age 15. And for doctors who perform surgery, and there's this myth that children are having, what's called bottom surgery. They're going from male to female, female to male at 12 years old. There's no doctor that's doing that, but doctors will do it at age 18. Doctors aren't doing it because under age 18, because you can't give consent, and they're not going to take consent from a parent. Okay. But now in Texas, the bill introduced yesterday is that doctors on the hook 50 years into the future if somebody decides this wasn't right for me. And so what the newest bill yesterday is to chill any kind of professional from working with, from helping transgender people. So let's assume, I don't know, and no raise of hand, but let's assume I've got some people in the room that have depression. Let's assume you have depression and you've been smart enough, you've been able to go see a doctor about it. Can you imagine if the state came in and said to you, no more treatment for you, no more treatment, or told your doctor that for treating you for depression, you are on the hook forever with this person if their condition worsens? How many doctors and therapists are going to continue to do the work? All right, so 469 anti-bills, 16 states have blocked gender-affirming care. That's where the puberty blockers to keep trans girls from having this voice. And 16 is not the end number. We still have a couple of states still debating bills. All right, I think it'll be 20 by the time the legislative season's over. 22 states have blocked transgender children, mainly trans girls, from participating in sports across the country. This is from kindergarten all the way through college, senior year, state college, university, senior year. Okay, so I know I have athletes in this room. How important is sports to you? Guess what? If you're trans, too bad. Who in the world has the right to decide that? But apparently in 22 states, they believe they do. 2 states have made it illegal for me to go and use public restroom. Now, everyone, those who know me know that I really like men a whole lot. Do you think women want me in the restroom with their husbands? Think about that. Hi, how are you? So dumb. I anticipate a couple more states will make it illegal for me to be in their restrooms before the end of this year, but coming next year, way more. And the Missouri Attorney General using consumer protection rule because the legislature isn't working fast enough for him, has created all these rules. You cannot get treated for gender dysphoria, what I had before I transitioned. You can't get treated for gender dysphoria for 3 years. And if you have depression in addition to gender dysphoria, which you always usually do, you can't get treatment for gender dysphoria until your depression is gone, which is totally ridiculous because you have depression because you have gender dysphoria. Right? I mean, this is incredibly bad. All right. The second question was, how bad will it get? Well, I believe that there will be continued marginalization of my community running up to the 2024 elections. I believe that if 2024 goes badly, God forbid, that we will see a national sports ban. So across the country, including Minnesota, we'll see Congress pass a law. It'll be signed that no transgender kid can participate in any sport. We will see a national gender affirming care ban so that no child under 18 can get any kind of gender affirming care with hormones or hormone blockers. I think that they'll go back, they'll ban any transgender person from military service. And I believe that they will ban transgender people from using any public facility, restrooms, locker rooms, changing rooms, pools, anything like that, that conforms to their gender identity rather than what they were assigned at birth. I believe also coming and how bad it will be is that they will prevent transgender people from presenting in public contrary to the birth gender. 2 days ago, I mean, this is a moving target, okay? So I'm keeping track. 2 days ago, the Texas Department of Agriculture announced rules saying you have to come to work dressed in conformity to the gender you were assigned at birth. I mean, I don't know how this works because we've got a whole lot of women walking around with men's clothes on, okay? And they're not transgender. But what that is it's an attempt to say, you cannot be you in public. We're going to erase you from public. And I believe that there is a risk that they'll ban gender confirming surgery for adults. And I've got to tell you, everyone, if I could not have changed my body back in 2010, when it happened, I would not be here. I would have taken my life. Guarantee it. Okay. I also believe that they might ban driver's licenses and passports. So I would have to go back to having an M on my driver's license. How fun would that be? Okay. And then I also believe that it's possible that there'll be a ban of any kind of healthcare. What can you do? Be aware. Hopefully I'm educating you. I know I'm depressing you, and I know some of you are making you uncomfortable. I'm sorry. And if you are part of the party that wants to marginalize me, come talk to me. Let's have a conversation, because I'm a human. My community is humans. So be aware. We are the canary in the coal mine regarding future oppression. So yesterday, in preparation for this talk, I went and found the timeline for Nazi Germany, about how the Nazis started to oppress the Jews. And you know what? There are a whole lot of similarities, a whole lot of similarities. So after they're done with us, who are they going to come after next? Because they will. Vote for and support affirming candidates. Push Rotary to speak up. What happened to this thing, to all the Rotary groups in all of those states with all of those colors? What happened to this? Get angry. This is real. People will die. People will take their lives because they will not be able to move. They will not be able to transition. Also, I want to throw in, I forgot, if you want to support the ACLU, because they're fighting many of those laws in those states, okay, National ACLU, or support Lambda, LAMBDA, legal. They are fighting a lot of those laws in those states as well. All right, I got 3 minutes. What questions do you have?
Okay.
Anybody pissed at me?
No, thank you, Ellie. The question keeps going through my mind, looking to the future, looking to the Constitution. What are the constitutional issues that might someday resolve this practice? It seems to me that these are religious-based biases.
Yeah.
And it's similar with abortion, is that what has not been tested yet is whether the anti-establishment clause of the First Amendment is affected here.
You know, I mean, 5 years ago, I would have said, well, thank God we have the Supreme Court. I don't say that anymore. The Supreme Court has become so politicized. We had Justice Thomas last summer in the Dobbs opinion say, okay, we've taken care of abortion now. Now we're going to go after contraception. Now we're going to go after marriage equality. And so, no, you have a conservative bloc. I have no more faith in the Supreme Court whatsoever. The only faith I have is in common people, like humans, willing to say something. And the problem with all these laws is that it's so much. People are fatigued. They're like, another one of those laws. Hey, pass the salt, will you? No. And we need your help. We can't do it. There are not enough of us. Other questions?
It's good to see you again, Alice. Thanks for coming. And thank you for raising awareness. I know there's a lot of topics that I'm not aware of, or to the extent that you presented. My question is, you talked about how bad it is here and how much worse it can get in the United States. But I was wondering, are we much worse than other countries? Where are we on this spectrum comparing to other countries? And are there any success stories that we can look up to?
We are better than Africa and many countries in Latin America. We are not nearly as good as Europe. And in terms of success stories, we were a success story until the oppression began. So, I mean, we have to fix this ourselves. And I have no faith that we're going to fix it. No faith whatsoever. And I think it's going to just get worse. And I began this by saying I'm frustrated, and I am. And I need your help. I do. And I see that my time is up. Thank you. I did bring the sign up if anybody wants to sign up for my newsletter that goes out to 9,000 people. It's a cheery newsletter. It's not like this. Okay. Yep. Sure. Yep. Thanks.
There will be a pen with your name.
Oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I mean, I'm part of the club. I don't need the swag. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ellie. Thank you, Lynn. All right. We also want to thank our volunteers for today, our greeter, Keith Stokquist. Thank you. Reflection from Kurt Nelson, our table discussion hosted by Jean Johnson. And thank you for all the board members that sat at each table. Our day chair, Lynn Otis, again, our Zoom masters, Brock and Greg, and Hugh for being our roaming reporter today. Our club administrators, Dick and Steve, as well as our interns, Savannah and Raylyn. Thank you. And thanks, King. Great to see you again. So next week, I don't know what the program is. I think it's a surprise. We'll see. On May 10th, we'll be actually off-site at Schmidt Music. So please look for more information about that. Should be a tour. Should be fun. Yes. It's bring your own, I think. No. It's stuck. And the other thing I guess mentioned is so April 17th, we have a speaker from the Cuban Guatemala Water Project. And then on the 24th, one of my partners from my firm, Amber Sousen, will be presenting on urban sketchers. So it may be interactive. We'll see. But she's really dynamic and really fun speaker. So with that, go out and have a wonderful Rotary week.